Well, happy Monday, brothers and sisters. I hope you had a great weekend worshiping Christ. If you were not able to worship in person and on campus Sunday, go to our website or YouTube page and watch the sermon from this past Sunday, and you can be all caught up on everything. Today in our Bible reading plan, we're in the Gospel of John, chapter 3, which is famous for Jesus' conversation with Nicodemus, and you must be born again. But that's not where I want to focus. What really jumped out at me and spoke to my heart is later in the chapter, starting at verse 25. And so what I want to do is read verses 25 to 30 and then talk about jealousy. That's right, jealousy versus joy. Starting in John 3 at verse 25. It says, there arose a discussion on the part of John's disciples. This is John the Baptist, his disciples, with a Jew about purification. And they came to John, his disciples came to John the Baptist and said to him, Rabbi, he who was with you beyond the Jordan, to whom you have testified, referring to Jesus, because remember, John baptized Jesus and said, behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. Well, in verse 26, John's disciples tell him that he is baptizing and all are coming to him. And when you get over in chapter 4, by the way, verses 1 and 2, Jesus and his disciples were baptizing more people than John had baptized, although Jesus personally was not baptizing, only his disciples were doing it, but larger crowds were now coming to Jesus than John the Baptist. And so I think John the Baptist's disciples were a little bit concerned. They needed some help with this. And John responded to them in verse 27 by saying, John answered and said, a man can receive nothing unless it has been given him from heaven. You yourselves are my witnesses that I said, I am not the Christ, but I have been sent ahead of him. Verse 29, he who has the bride is the bridegroom. But the friend of the bridegroom who stands and hears him rejoices greatly because of the bridegroom's voice. So this joy of mine has been made full. He must increase, but I must decrease. Beautiful, beautiful passage. Now, if John the Baptist's disciples were a little bit concerned, maybe even on the borderline of jealousy, because Jesus and his disciples now drew larger crowds and were baptizing more people, John could have been jealous. John could have been envious, but he wasn't. He was excited at what was happening with Jesus and his ministry. He was overcome with joy at it, not jealousy. And his reaction, notice what he said in verse 27. He said, this is only possible. He said, you can't receive that kind of blessing unless it comes from heaven. So he's saying the only reason Jesus is able to do more is because that's the will of the Father. The Father is blessing. It's coming from heaven. In verse 28, he said, I told you guys, I am not the Christ. I'm the one sent before him to prepare the way. I'm not the Messiah. And verse 29, he said, you know how the best man at a wedding is excited when his friend, the bridegroom, is getting married to the bride? Because he's happy for the bridegroom. He said, it's like I'm the best man and Jesus is the bridegroom, and all the people of faith, all the followers, all the Christians, they're the bride. And I am so excited that my friend, the bridegroom, Jesus, is meeting the bride, his followers. I'm happy. I'm happy. And in verse 30, he says, I know my role. I have to increase so he can decrease. I know my role. I know my place. Jealousy is a powerful human emotion. And it really messes up a lot of people, destroys a lot of relationships, hinders a lot of people's walk with Jesus. In fact, jealousy can be a real problem in the local church, can't it? Not because there's anything wrong with the church, but because there's something wrong with us as human beings. People get jealous in church. I've seen preachers get jealous of other preachers who are having more, quote unquote, success, opportunities. People who sing get jealous because that person gets to sing more than they do, or I don't get to sing anymore because they don't think I'm jealousy. People who are Sunday school teachers Get jealous of somebody who has a bigger class, who's a more gifted teacher that people would enjoy hearing, who's just better at teaching. They get jealous. On and on we go. And I've seen people who were serving Christ because they did not keep their heart right the way John did become jealous, and it ruined them and it hindered the ministry. John is a good example for us to follow. There are going to be people that God blesses with more talent, more skill, more opportunity, and more success than you. Your call is to rejoice at the hand of God. Jealousy is a tool of Satan to ruin you and hinder God's work. It's like the Apostle Paul said in Romans chapter 12, verse 3, I say to everyone among you not to think more highly of himself than he ought to think. Jealousy is the green-eyed monster that kills people. Don't let it kill you. God bless you, brothers and sisters. I'll see you tomorrow.